One of the most influential and admired leaders in Silicon Valley, widely credited as the leader behind Facebook's transformation from a cash-poor social phenomenon to a profitable internet powerhouse. Sheryl Sandberg is consistently ranked near the top of the list of Fortune's most powerful women in business. She served as Google's Vice President of Online Sales and Operations and as Chief of Staff for U.S. Treasury Secretary before joining Facebook. In a broad-ranging interview, her session will explore her leadership at Facebook, her counterintuitive thoughts about gender in the workforce, and poignant insights into resilience from her new book, Option B. Let's give a warm Summit welcome to Sheryl Sandberg.
Sheryl, our Summit crowd has been looking forward to me interviewing you for a long, long time. And I don't want to waste a minute, so with your permission, I'd like to jump right in.
Well, thank you for having me. And as I told you, I read the Willow Creek case study in business school in 1993. So this has been a long time coming for me as well. And I'm super grateful to be with all of you.
Well, thanks again. So I'm working on a little theory here and could use your help. So when is the first conscious memory of yours that you might be a leader? How old were you? Where were you? What were you doing when you went, hey, wait a minute, people are following me?
I don't even know when that was, but probably like way into my career. I will tell you what my mom would say if she answered that question. She would say I worked it out with my little brother when I was about 4 and he was about 2, that I would walk around and he would follow me, and then I would make some long, I'm sure, not that intelligible statement. And then I would look at my 2-year-old brother and say, right, David? And he would say, right. And I worked out a system with him where no matter what I said and how silly it was, I would say, right, David? And he would say, right. But I think for me, I don't think I defined myself as a leader for a long time. And
not in grade school, not in college. You didn't lead any athletic team, any academic team?
I ran for sophomore class president and won. So I guess I was a leader then, even though if you had asked me, are you a leader? I'm not sure what I would have said. And I think that's part of why I wrote Lean In, because I don't think as a girl growing up or even a young woman, I identified myself as a leader. I was called bossy. I was told by one of my advisors in 9th grade when I was vice president of the class that I was too bossy and too aggressive. And I don't think we encourage young girls to think of themselves as leaders, and I think that needs to change.
Yeah. This theory that I'm working on is if we can identify young men and women as leaders earlier in their life and get them in some kind of leadership development, track, it will probably serve them better. If they self-identify younger, then they'll probably get a little hungrier for leadership and dive into it the older they get.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. What we see ourselves becoming is often what we can become, and we can't become what we can't see. And so you're right for boys and girls. I think it's particularly important for girls. I tell people all over the world, next time you see a little girl called bossy, and it's often a little girl, you walk right up to that person, people who called her bossy on the playground, probably her parents, big smile, and you say, that little girl's not bossy. That little girl has executive leadership skills. And that's really funny, right? But here, try it the other way. That little boy has executive leadership skills. There's no humor. And that's because humor is against type, against expectations. We expect boys to lead, so there's no humor. We don't expect girls, and I'm so glad you're working on that because we need to change that.
Sheryl, I noticed when at first you went to Google, you didn't have a very clear job assignment there. And then you went to Facebook, and maybe it was a little fuzzier yet, but you wanted to work for those organizations. There was a challenge, and you had passion about it. Talk to us about that.
I wanted to work in tech because I believed that technology was really changing the world. Before that, I only thought I'd ever work in a nonprofit or in the government because I wanted to hopefully do good and have some impact. And then I really believed in what was going on in technology. And my job offer at Google was to come in and be Google's business unit general manager, except there were no business units. Therefore nothing to manage at all. So there's like no job there. And I had a chart of all my criteria. And I had a few other job offers, and Google met none of my criteria, except I really loved the mission, and I thought it was really gonna grow. And Eric Schmidt put his hand on my paper and said, when you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, you don't ask what seat, you jump on. And that was the most important advice. And I went to Google because I believed in their mission and I saw the path for growth. And then I went to Facebook because I believed in the mission and I saw the path for growth.
Now, back at Google, you were asked to hire like 4,000 people. And one of your leadership axioms is you like to say, hire big. Can you explain to our crowd, what does it mean when you say hire big?
I think there's two things I really believe in hiring. One is hire people with unbelievable skills, and the second is hire the people you're going to need, even if you don't need them yet.
Right.
So, you know, we hire people for experience and we hire people for skills, and they're both important, but I'm a big believer in skills. Maybe because when I moved out to the Valley, I had no experience. And there were people who looked at me and said, we're never gonna hire anyone like you. You don't have any experience. And there are people who said, I know you don't have experience, but I believe you have the skills to make a contribution. So I am very much a skill-based hirer. I will take a great athlete, someone with great analytical, business, leadership, communication skills, over someone who has years of experience doing what we need done, because I believe we can develop them. Now, it's great if you can get both, but you don't always need it. And the second is hire for the people you're going to need, not the people you need. When I was at Google, I hired David Fisher to run the US AdWords business. So it was the US advertising business. We might have had 20 people on the team. You know, 6.5 years later, there were 4,000. He was managing a good chunk of them. The first job he got wasn't big enough, but I knew where we were going or believed we could go there. But hiring the people who could get you there is how to get there. People say, this person's too senior for the job. I don't know. If the person's willing to take the job, they will create the position they're looking for.
So hire big. Do you fire fast?
I don't know if any organization fires as quickly as it should. I really believe in giving people chances and giving people real feedback. I don't believe it's fair to fire people without real feedback. But there are situations where we do need to fire fast because someone has broken one of our rules, and we take those very, very seriously. Or it's really the wrong job. And either moving someone to a different job or letting them go is actually pretty important.
Yeah. You're big into candor. You want people to tell you the truth. You want them to be able to hear the truth from you. Did you pick that up in your house? Did you pick it up in your first job? Where did the candor come from?
I've always been really direct. My mother is a great communicator. She taught my brother and sister and I to mirror, meaning even as little kids, if we were upset, we had to sit down and be like, I'm upset because he took my toy. And then my brother would have to repeat, she's upset because I took her toy. Or she's upset because she believes I took her toy, even though I didn't take her toy, but learning to be direct. Most organizations that fail for reasons everyone is aware of and no one says. When you have the bad manager at work, everyone knows it and no one's surfacing it. So I really believe in being direct and finding the right way to get there.
Another one of your axioms is to focus on results, not on FaceTime. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it's really easy to say, well, it didn't go well, but that person's putting in a lot of effort. The problem is doing that means you're gonna reward people for just being there. You know, we've had people at Facebook who famously didn't work that many hours, but got amazing results. And we would say, you know what, if you can get the results he or she can get, great, work less. The goal is not to have as much face time in the office, but the goal is to get results and set ambitious goals and hit them and do it as efficiently as possible. We also try to make heroes of people who try hard, execute well, but fail. Because organizations, and this is in option B, my new book on resilience, organizations that build resilience and are successful are those that learn from failure. And if people are sweeping failure under the rug and not learning from it, you don't learn. And so we actually sometimes, we've given our product awards of the year to people that had a great plan, executed well, but it didn't work and they proved why and did it well.
Okay, now I want to switch gears here a little bit because most people know that you're a phenomenal leader at Facebook. They watch what you do. It's pretty visible to anyone who wants to look. But when you started the Lean In movement, that requires an entirely different set of leadership skills in my book, because now you're trying to have people all over the world awaken to something. There's a cause, and you're trying to stir up something worldwide. So you did it by writing a book called Lean In, and then you moved it strategically where people would attend Lean In groups. But where did the whole passion for the Lean In movement and the Lean In book start?
When I entered the workforce, I graduated from college in 1991. I looked above me and it was mostly men, and I looked alongside me and there were just as many great women going into those jobs as men. And I expected that, well, we haven't had our chance, but as the years go by, my generation will make it equal. We'll have equal leadership roles. And it just didn't happen. You know, women to this day have basically 5% of the Fortune 500 CEO jobs, or the equivalent in every country in the world. You know, we are, less than 25% of the US Congress. These numbers are not moving, and they're not moving quickly enough. Women run 11 countries. And I think we would have a more equitable, fairer, more just, but also more efficient, more productive world if women got an equal seat at the table, and people of all races and backgrounds. And my passion for Lean In comes from wanting a more equal world where people have equal opportunity to contribute, both in the workplace and at home.
Now, from a strategic standpoint, though, this was welling up inside of you. You saw it every place you worked. At some point in time, you had to have one of those aha moments where you said, I am going to do something about this. And was the first part in your strategy to say, I have to write about it?
What happened is I started learning and studying what were the things in our culture, in our society, institutionally, that were holding women back.
Right.
And then I wanted someone to say that. So I actually went to all these other women who were in the CEO jobs and said, here's what's happening for women. You should talk about this. But, I figured they had a platform I didn't have, but no one else wanted to. And then I was given an opportunity to give a talk for TED Women. But they didn't really want me to talk about women. They wanted me to talk about social media.
Right.
And I thought, I'm going to say this. And a lot of people told me not to. They said, you're a corporate leader. If you speak out as a woman, you will be typecast forever. It'll ruin your career. But I thought, this is something I have to say. So I gave this TED Talk, and I gave it on why we don't have enough women leaders.
Right.
And it was really the response to that talk
that went crazy.
That put me down the path to Lean In. Probably the most important thing that happened are the Lean In circles. So there are now almost 33,000 circles in 150 countries. We grow by almost 100 a week. These are small groups that, we say 8 to 10, but in Texas, there's one that's several hundred because they say everything's bigger in the state of Texas. But that get together to support each other's ambitions. Women and men, anyone's welcome. It is mostly women, even though we like having men join us. And it's making a difference. 2/3 of the people that join a circle are taking a step to be more ambitious in their life. Half of people in a circle say that their circle supported them through something hard. No one does anything alone.
Yeah, that's right.
If you want to be ambitious, even as a man, but as a woman especially, you need support.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to get that is peer support. And a circle that meets every month is a great way to get that support.
Now, Sheryl, my thought when I read the book at first was this ought to be mandatory reading for men, because I think men, especially good-hearted men who really don't think the problem is as dramatic as it is, don't think they have a role to play, don't think it's as dramatic as it is. When I went down your list of observations about how women are treated in the workplace, how they're overlooked sometimes, how they're unfairly paid, and then if they're married, how they drop out of the workforce because of childcare situations. And I mean, you had probably 50 pages in that book that brought something to my attention like nothing else ever had. Just click off some of those kind of values that you were lifting up in that book.
Well, thank you. And I really do think men have a huge role to play in creating a more equitable world. And the most important part is it's actually good for the men. At home, if you have a more equal partnership, you have a happier marriage, a lower divorce rate, your wife has lower rates of depression. Those are real results, right? Yeah. In the workplace, if you're the most entry-level person all the way up to the senior leader in any field, if you can work better with half the population, you're gonna outperform. And so it makes a difference. I think it's recognizing the small and unconscious biases we all have against female leadership, including me, including women. And it's not a question of pointing blame. We all have this. We all, including me, laugh at the joke that a little girl isn't bossy, she has executive leadership skills.
Yeah.
All of us do that. All of us. We interrupt women more than men. We give men credit for women's ideas. We assign the home housework and the office housework to women. Everything at West Point, from doing boards, writing on the boards, to taking notes, to planning the parties, women are doing the communal work in the office, and they're doing more office housework. Guess what doesn't get you promoted? Throwing the party and taking the notes. And I'm not saying that women shouldn't do that. I just think men should do their share as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the anecdotes in the book that I appreciated so much was you were on a busy project at work, and you felt like it was your turn, perhaps, if I'm remembering the story right, to take your little boy to St. Patrick's Day at school. Can you tell
Well, the
that
story was, it was St. Patrick's Day, you remember well, and I drove my son to school, and I think he was like in kindergarten. And the volunteers, I do this sometimes too, would open the door and say good morning. And they open the door and he's wearing his favorite blue t-shirt, and she just says, "It's St. Patrick's Day. He's supposed to be wearing green." So, I do what any mother would do. I spend the rest of the day, crazed. Oh my God, he doesn't have green. All the other kids have green. I'm a terrible mother. How can I not remember it was St. Patrick's Day? How did I miss the email from the school telling me to wear green? And I'm literally about to leave work and go to Target and buy a green t-shirt and bring it to school. Probably embarrass him because he doesn't want mom showing up with a green t-shirt.
Right.
And I call my husband, and what he says was, "Our son's learning something really important today. He's learning he doesn't have to be like everyone else." Now, if my husband had driven my son to school on that day and he had worn a blue t-shirt, what anyone would have done opening the doors, they wouldn't have said, "Oh my God, he's supposed to wear green." Yeah. They would have said, "You are such a fantastic father for driving your son to school.
For driving him to school.
How
yes.
come your wife didn't put him in a green t-shirt?" We blame women for not doing housework and childcare perfectly, and we applaud men for doing any of it at all. And that's the problem.
Yeah. I started our church when I was 22 years old, and one of the values that I felt very deeply about was to let women lead as well as men. And we have women elders and women teachers and women executives, women all throughout the organization. And I don't get misty very often reading books, but there's one section in your book, Lean In, that really affected me on an emotional level. And just as a favor, I wonder if you would read that section for us.
I would love to. This is the end of the book. Okay. The march toward true equality continues. It continues down the halls of governments, corporations, academia, hospitals, law firms, nonprofits, research labs, and every organization, large and small, including churches. We owe it to the generations that came before us and the generations that will come after to keep fighting. I believe women can lead more in the workplace. I believe men can contribute more in the home. And I believe that this will create a better world, one where half our institutions are run by women and half our homes are run by men. I look toward the world I want for all children and my own. My greatest hope is that my son and my daughter will be able to choose what to do with their lives without external or internal obstacles slowing them down or making them question their choices. If my son wants to do the important work of raising children full-time, I hope he is respected and supported. And if my daughter wants to work full-time outside her home, I hope she is not just respected and supported, but also liked for her achievements. I hope they both end up exactly where they want to be. And when they find where their true passions lie, I hope they both lean in all the way.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I believe that.
Hey, so then let's just go chronologically. Your career is still going terrific at Facebook, and now you're leading this worldwide movement called Lean In, and women are feeling empowered all over the world. They have all these groups that are helping support them. You go to Mexico on vacation with the love of your life, your husband, and tell us the story.
It was over 2 years ago, and Dave, my husband, and I went on vacation for our friend Phil Deutsch's 50th birthday, and really the unimaginable happened. We're by the pool, he went to the gym. I didn't quite know where he was for a few hours. I figured he was with friends, and then when I realized he wasn't at dinner, my sister-in-law It's like, where's the gym? We all went running, and there he was. And I've learned later that he had already died very suddenly of a cardiac arrhythmia. And, you know, this is the unimaginable and the unthinkable. And for me, the grief was just completely overwhelming. I thought I would never feel better. And I turned to my friend Adam, who's a psychologist, and I asked him, you know, what do I do? How do I get my children? They were 7 and 10 at the time through this. How do I get myself through this? And eventually we wrote this book to try to share the answers that we found, and there are no perfect answers, with other people as well.
Yeah. So let's go back to the first couple weeks right after his death. In the book, you use the term incapacitated, like just feeling like you were in a fog that you could not get out of, and that it affected you pretty much every hour of every day. You know, there's large numbers of people watching us right now. They've never lost a loved one. They don't know what the fog is. They don't know what it's like to be absolutely paralyzed by something that's like hanging over your head and not going away. So what did you turn to your faith? Did you turn to your work? Who did you turn to?
I turned to everyone and everything, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. You know, Adam, who wrote the book with me, and I have talked about how there's a huge self-help section in every bookstore, but there's no help others section. And we want option B to be in the help others section, because it's not just about the people who are going through it, it's about all the people around them and how we support them through it. For me, the grief felt like it would never end.
Yeah.
And I turned to my friends. I turned to my friend Adam. I turned to other people's experiences. I looked for God, for comfort. I looked to tradition. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it just didn't. Sometimes I would feel like a glimmer of hope. It's going to be okay. And a lot of times, particularly in those early weeks and days and months, I didn't believe it. And people said to me who had been through it, it gets better. It never goes away entirely, but it gets better.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe it, and I want other people to believe it, which is why we wrote option B.
You and Adam referred to 3 Ps to kind of help you get through some of this grieving. I thought they were very compelling. Could you run through those for us?
This really helped me. Adam said one of the most common traps we have psychologically of not getting through grief are these 3 Ps. So the first is personalization. It's all my fault. I blame myself for Dave's death. I should have gone to med school. My brother and sister, you know, we're a good Jewish family. You're supposed to go to med school. I didn't.
Yeah.
My brother and sister did. I should have known he had coronary artery disease. I blamed myself.
Yeah.
My mom just canceled her life for a month to stay with me. All my clients, I've, you know, not going to any of their meetings. You can blame yourself, and we blame ourselves for things that are our fault and aren't our fault. Yeah. And I'm not saying we shouldn't hold ourselves responsible. And of course, people do terrible things and they need to be held accountable and hold themselves accountable. But it is human to make mistakes. Yeah. And beating ourselves up does not help. Yeah. And so looking for the personalization, it's not my fault Dave died, and I know that now. Yeah. And even if it had been my fault, beating yourself up over and over again is not the way to recover. Yeah. The second is pervasiveness. All areas of my life are terrible.
I thought this was fascinating.
I'm going to be a terrible mom. How can I parent 2 grieving children? Yep. I was doing it with Dave before. I'm never going to be able to do my job. I can barely get through a meeting without crying. Everything's terrible. Yep. And being able to say, actually, my kids are alive. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the most shocking things. Adam said to me, you should think about what might be worse. At first I'm like, are you crazy?
What could be worse?
What could be worse? My husband just died suddenly. And he looked at me and said, Dave could have had that cardiac arrhythmia driving your kids. Yeah. Yeah. Literally, you say that, and I'm like, I'm fine. Yep. Kids are alive. Yep. So much worse, right? It could be worse. And finding the things that are still good in your life. Yeah. It's not pervasive. Yeah. And the third we talked about is permanence. It doesn't feel like it'll go away in that moment or those moments, but it does. Yeah. And I want people to know it does and it will. Yeah.
When Adam and you were working on just trying to get a little stronger every day after this terrible tragedy, you both started using a word called resilience, and that seemed to kind of take on a life of its own. What is it?
I started out asking Adam, how much resilience do I have? Do I have enough? Do my kids have enough? And he said, that is the wrong question. Resilience is our ability to overcome hardship, and it is a muscle, and we build it. Don't ask me how much you have. Ask me how you can build it.
Yeah. Now, another thing that I really enjoyed, kind of a window into you, I think, you decided that you were going to mark every moment of joy in your ongoing life. You were going to find reasons to be grateful. You grab your kids' hands before you eat now, and you say prayers of gratefulness. What's all that about?
You know, everyone's heard of post-traumatic stress or PTSD. If you ask the audience watching, who's heard of PTSD, all the hands will go up.
Yeah.
If we ask, who's heard of post-traumatic growth?
Oh, yeah.
No hands will go up, 5 hands. And they're all gonna be clinical psychologists, right?
Yeah.
But more people experience post-traumatic growth than post-traumatic stress. And post-traumatic stress is a very serious problem we need to deal with better. And I'm not saying that's not true. But there is growth. That doesn't mean you'd trade it. I would trade every bit of growth I have to have Dave back, but there are ways in which I have grown. I have a deeper, more appreciative, more meaningful life. And gratitude is a big part of this. Joy is something we have to look for.
Yeah.
You know, guilt comes in. After Dave died, the first moments I felt any joy, I then felt so guilty.
Yeah.
How can I be happy? Even 4 months later, Dave died. But I know that I deserve joy. And Adam taught me that by saying, if you don't feel happy, your kids can't. And every single person watching us around the world, no matter what they've been through, no matter what they've done, they deserve moments of joy.
Yeah. So Sheryl, now you go back into Facebook a changed person and probably a different kind of leader after you've had these, tragic life experiences. So not trying to put you on the spot here, but in what ways have these crises and tragedies shaped you as a leader?
Oh, in so many ways. I don't sweat the small stuff as much. Even at work, I feel that we, overreacting to something does not help, and I definitely have a calmer sense of what's important. I understand now that part of what you need to do to support people who are facing trauma, and it's not just death, cancer, a parent going to jail, a friend going to jail, sexual assault, losing a job. I mean, there's so many different forms of very serious hardships people have. We need to not ignore those.
Yeah.
When I went back to work after Dave died, all the chit chat just stopped. I used to walk in, everyone would say, hi, Facebook's a very friendly place. Not after Dave died. It was like, I was a ghost. I think people were so afraid to say the wrong thing. They didn't say anything at all. And I saw myself in that. Before, if someone was facing something hard, I would say one time, I'm sorry for what you're going through.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't mention it at all because I was afraid to remind them.
Yeah.
You can't remind me Dave died, and you can't remind someone she has cancer.
Yeah.
So when we don't say anything, we don't acknowledge. And now I will say, you may or may not want to talk, but I am here and to go through this with you.
Yeah.
I also realized we need to build people back up. As parents, as colleagues. Before, if someone was facing something hard at work, I thought my only job was to take the pressure off them. Give them time off, say, oh, we'll take that project. You don't have to do anything. How could you concentrate with all you're going through? And I still think that's very important. I'm proud of Facebook's policies. I want other companies to do better. But it's also important to say, but you can still do that.
Yeah.
Because when I came back and all anyone said to me was, how could you concentrate? I was like, oh my God, I can't do my job, and they all know it.
Yeah.
Mark, my boss who's 15 years younger than I am, he would say, you can have more time off if you need it, but I think you made a really good point today. And that was actually much more helpful than take any time you want. I needed both.
Right.
Or, I'm really glad you came today because we wouldn't have gotten there without you.
Yeah.
Now, when people come back to work, I acknowledge what they're going through. I ask them if they want time off, but I also say to them, we still believe in you.
Yeah.
You made a good point today. The compliment on the most basic thing is really helpful.
Sheryl, what were the worst things that people said to you, just so that all of our listeners can,
probably the worst thing that anyone said to me, you're so sad and angry, it's too hard to be around you. And I was. I was sad and I was angry. And it came out in ways that were hard and I wasn't proud of. You know, a friend could say the wrong thing and I'd be like, that's not helpful. And usually I'd catch myself right there and say, I'm sorry, but sometimes I wouldn't. And I needed friends who could be there even when I wasn't fun.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little messy, and if people don't have some grace for the mess, that's probably not helpful.
Yeah, and my closest friends, I remember my friend Clea looking at me and saying, like, you know, I snapped about something and she put her arms around me and she said, I'm angry too.
Yeah.
I'm angry too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Nothing you say can upset me because I'm angry too.
You really turned to a lot of your friends during the darkest hours. Why so?
Because when things like this happen, we can't get through it ourselves. And I knew and still know that we need our friends to be there. And one of the things I learned through this is how important friendship is and how we have to show up for each other. Before Dave died, if a friend was going through something hard, I would offer to help. You know, is there anything I can do? And I meant it sincerely. But when that question was asked to me, I realized it kind of shifts the burden to the person who needs the help. I didn't know how to answer. Well, can you make Father's Day go away so I don't have to live through it?
Yeah.
And what I realized is that it's so much better to show up and do something specific than offer to do anything. My dear friends Dan and Esther Levy, they tragically lost a child and they were in the hospital for many months with him. And one of his friends texted and said, I'm in the hospital lobby for a hug for the next hour, whether you come down or not. Now, a friend of mine read that story in option B, and she had a friend, not a close friend, but kind of a distant friend who went to the hospital with her daughter. And she said before she read option B, she wouldn't have done anything. How dare she show up in the hospital and pose it's not her best friend? But she read the book, so she went to the toy store, she bought a toy, she went to the hospital lobby and texted, I'm here with a toy. Just, I could leave it here, I could come up. And the woman texted right away and said, please come up. So she went upstairs and she gave the 4-year-old who's sick the toy. And the 4-year-old opened it and the mother is standing behind her crying. Thank you for being here. And the whole time she was there, no one else showed up. You do not have to be someone's best friend from the first grade to show up. Yeah. And you can do it in a way which offers the help. We need to show up for each other more. I know I'm way better at showing up for people since Dave died.
Yeah. At some point, you really do wake up on certain days and you kind of see the sun a little brighter. You see the trees that are a little greener, and you actually start to experience joy again, am I right?
Yes, and at first it was really hard because I needed permission to feel joy. The first moment I think I felt happy, I was at a friend's child's bar mitzvah,